Is homophobia kinda gay, scientifically speaking? Maybe, and how would we find out? Right, we build a penis lie detector. Shouldn't there be better ways to try and find that out? Turns out, not really. But anyway, to better understand homophobia, Henry Adams, Lester Wright and Bethany Lohr set out to investigate straight men's arousal around gay stuff. Scientific term. The word homophobia originates in the 60s, and it means that you think about gay people or gay stuff and you get a odd feeling inside. You're not indifferent to the idea. That means homophobia, or it meant homophobia. From the university's psychology department study pool, 64 men qualified. They were 18 to 31 and all white. To qualify for the study, the men had to go through 3 tests. The first one was a heterosexuality check. They used a modulated form of the Kinsey scale that goes from all the way homosexual to all the way heterosexual, and only admitted all the way heterosexual people because they wanted to find out if heterosexual people feel arousal around homosexual stuff. The 64 men next tested in the index of homophobia, answering 25 questions, scoring up to 4 points per question, to a combined total of between 0 and 100. The results were divided into 4 groups: 0 to 25, not at all or chill; 25 to 50, a little less chill; 50 to 75, bit icky; and 75 to 100, very icky. They said that if you scored above 50, you were considered homophobic for the study, and if you scored below 50, you were considered non-homophobic. 29 men scored non-homophobic, and 35 men scored homophobic. The authors note it was difficult to find people who were non-homophobic among the psychology department study pool. The third test was a general test of aggressiveness. They used the Aggression Questionnaire for this, and it turns out that both groups had the same amount of aggressiveness, respectively non-aggressiveness. So now on to the testing. In a soundproof room, in a comfortable chair, the participants were instructed on the procedure. The tester left. The test subject attached a mercury and rubber circumference measurement device to their own penis, and then had a few minutes time to get a baseline.
A few minutes later.
The mercury and rubber measurement device was hooked to a plethysmograph, and the plethysmograph was in turn hooked to a polygraph. Now we're talking. Shitty lie detector incoming. And the shitty lie detector in turn was hooked to an IBM computer. Each one of the 64 men was sitting in quiet for a little while, or talking through the two-way comm system to the test instructor, and they got a base measurement. Then they were shown clips. There were 3 clips, each 4 minutes long, one for heterosexual, one for homosexual with women, and one for homosexual with men. The erotic clips were structured similarly, though we do not have an exact description. They state that they range from kissing over undressing to oral to penetration or scissoring in the case of the women. The clips were shown to the 64 men in random order to avoid structure bias, and between each clip the participant had time to get back to flaccid baseline state. Now the results. But before we can discuss the results, we need to talk about 2 terms, which is 1, arousal, and 2, engorgement. Which is not a sexy word, is it? The engorgement, just increase in circumference, is easy enough, but arousal means heightened excitement for what you're actually seeing. So this the arousal was measured with questionnaires and compared to the lie detector readout or the mercury and rubber circumference measurement readout to get an idea of how homophobia works. Now the results. Homophobic people were considerably engorged by all clips. The homosexual male clip, the homosexual woman clip, and the homosexual and the heterosexual clip. The non-homophobic people were also slightly engorged by our clips, but way less so for the man homosexual clip. What's also important to report, there was almost no lying as we compare the arousal to the measured state of enlargement. So everyone, homophobic or non-homophobic, said more or less the truth. We have one anomaly with the non-homophobic people. So there were 6 reportings. Male homosexual, non-homophobic and homophobic, female homosexual, non-homophobic and homophobic, and heterosexual, non-homophobic and homophobic. And they were all the same, except for non-homophobic for some reason, and homosexual male. The researchers did statistical testing against all other results, but couldn't find a reason. They advised it could possibly have to do with the only very small increase in the size of the engorgement for the non-homophobic group watching the homosexual male video, and thus resulting in a bigger error because you have more complicated to measure numbers. We also have total results, not just statistically, for the homosexual male video. So for the non-homophobes, or the indifferent people, 66% had only a small increase, 10% had a medium increase, and 24% had a large increase. For the homophobic group, 20% had a small increase, 26% had a medium increase, and 54% had a large increase. So is homophobia kinda gay? Yes, pending further research. Already back then, like this was 1996, like 40 years ago. Is it 40? No, 30, right? Like 30 years ago. Yeah, great math. Trust me on the statistics, cuties. One of the reasons that has already been discussed back then is that this could be internalized homophobia. An alternative solution was given resulting from anxiety, which has been shown before can happen. The idea being that they never have or are anxious about watching a gay, homosexual, explicitly erotic clip, and this leads to an unwanted physical response. Interesting about the discussion of the results is that there was not the same amount of dislike of one's own attraction to homosexual women, which supports that this is a problem of compulsory heteronormativity or internalized homophobia. But it could also, again, in terms of the anxiety measurement speaking, be that they were familiar and comfortable with homosexual women erotic explicit clips, but not with male homoerotic clips.